Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Erin. I am a fourth year urology resident and I got a comment recently to do a video about step 2 studying. So that's what today's video is about. I hope you enjoy this video. If you do, please don't forget to subscribe. Please comment any videos that you want to see down below because it's really helpful for me just to know like what kind of content you guys are looking for. And without further ado, let's jump in. First, to start this off, like situational wise, I took step 2 in 2018. So obviously it's not the most recent. I'm a fourth year resident and I took a year off, but I basically took step 2 right after I finished my third year of medical school. I was taking a year off before starting my fourth year. And so back then, step 1 was still scored. And so usually people who did well on step 1 would wait to take step 2 until later so that it wouldn't really factor into their application for residency. I knew I was taking this year off. I wanted to take step 2 before I took the year off. And so for me, the score mattered. So kind of situationally, I was taking it seriously because I knew residency programs would see my step 2 score. I also, because I was taking a year off and didn't have to jump right into new rotations or anything like that, had a full month of like dedicated study time where I was not doing classes, I was not doing rotations, I was just home before I started my year when I moved to New York. And I have a whole video on this, but if you don't know, I worked for the Dr. Oz show for a year. So before I did that, I had a whole month of dedicated to study for step 2. So the first major thing that I did was I did YearWorld questions. I think anyone who studies for step 2 will recommend this. Anyone who's taken step 2 will recommend this. What I did differently is I really didn't use YearWorld for my shelf exams. I wanted to save all the questions so that the first time I would be seeing them was studying for step 2. I'm not really sure if this made a huge difference. Obviously, if I did medicine and surgery at the beginning of the year. If I was doing YearWorld questions, I highly doubt I would remember them by the time it came around to study for step 2. But in my head, that's what I wanted to do because when I studied for step 1, I used mainly YearWorld as most people do. So I really didn't use YearWorld to study for a lot of my shelf exams. I used Dr. Pestana's for surgery, Step Up to Medicine for medicine. I used a lot of YouTube videos with high yield topics that just were kind of lectures or went over high yield topics. So when I did YearWorld, it was the first time I was doing it, total refresh, and I had all the questions were brand new to me. I would try to do 2 blocks per day, which doesn't sound like that much, but I had a full month of dedicated. I'm sure I stepped this up near the end. Again, I'm trying to think back, but I remember trying to do 2 blocks a day, and some days did it, some days didn't. It was hard because I knew I was going into a year off, and so it was kind of hard to keep that motivation high. But I think that was my goal. And so how I do YearWorld, and I've talked about this in other videos, but just how I do it is I'll do it on my computer, and then I like to do it where I see the answer right after I do the question, because I like to kind of remember my thought process when doing the question, if I got it right or how I got it wrong, and go over kind of and adjust that thought process right when it happens. And what I do is I am the type of person where I have to physically, you can see I literally took notes for this and I took it on a notepad. I physically have to write things down to remember it. And so I would have 2 blank sheets of paper, and I would have a list of any topic that I either remembered but really wanted to review more recently or multiple times, or topics that I didn't remember, facts, anything like that, and I'd write that on my piece of paper. So that was anything I wanted to remember from that day, I would write on the piece of paper. And then on the second piece of paper, I would write the super high yield stuff that I wanted to review the morning of the exam. And really the goal of that second piece of paper was to have 1 or 2 of those total from my whole study period to review right before the exam. Obviously, that can undergo multiple iterations. If it gets longer, even cut it down further. Or if you have something that on that second sheet of paper that you know what, I got this, I'll remember this, I don't need to review this right before, then take it off. So obviously that undergoes multiple iterations. So I had basically any topic that I wanted to remember, anything that I wanted to remember on one piece of paper, and then the super high yield stuff on another piece of paper. That's what I did kind of all throughout med school, step 1. That is kind of how I study. I'm still like that when I study for like our in-service exams or anything like that. I'm sure when I like get really into board studying, I'll do that. I just really physically writing it down helps me a lot. So that was kind of like the biggest thing I did. The other thing I did for YearWorld after I would do the questions, in addition to writing them down, is I think YearWorld has a lot of, in the explanations, a lot of like graphs, a lot of tables that had a lot of really useful information. I remember like the growth, like the milestones for babies, that was a big one for me. I would always have trouble to remember those. And so I would be doing this on my computer, and I would take a picture with my phone of those tables, of those graphs, and then make a folder on my photos on my phone. So if I was anywhere, just like in the car, or like, you know, passenger princess, on a bus, like anything like that, at the gym, I could flip through these photos, and kind of that would be like another way I would just review like high yield information. I do remember it being, like I kind of alluded to before, more relaxed. I remember like half the time I would have like Bones playing on the TV or something, just because I like would zone out so easily. So it definitely wasn't as intense, as stressful as step one, but I did try to take it, you know, relatively seriously. The other resources that I used, I did try to use Sketchy. Sketchy was a huge resource for me during step one. I like printed out all of the pictures, like the still pictures that they use in the animations, and like really tried to memorize those. I still can remember them even now, like for some antibiotics. Like that was so helpful for me, those memory palaces. And step two Sketchy, I think, was just getting started when I was studying for step two. So I did use it. It was mainly for me, I used it as kind of a break. So I would, if I was like, I can't do another question, read another thing, like I'm starting to get zoned out, I would watch some Sketchy videos, and it would be like a productive break. Like it was kind of like watching like something where my mind could relax a little bit, but also I felt like I was absorbing some of the information. I didn't find it as helpful as step one, but again, this was 2018. So I honestly haven't been on Sketchy. So if you're someone who learns like that, I would still try to check it out and just kind of see if there's stuff on there that is useful for you. The other thing that I think plays a huge role in step two is fatigue. I think, you know, step one, again, I know step two is more important now because step one is pass fail, but step two was kind of the overlooked test when I was taking it. And so it was kind of hard to get the motivation, get like the panic up to study for it. And also it's after your third year of med school. That's a really hard year of medical school. A lot of people are fatigued. And so just kind of building up a test taking stamina, I think, is really important for step two. I did do the YearWorld practice tests, and I also did the NBME practice tests, and that was to just literally build stamina. I do think that they are pretty accurate in like dictating a score. But it is so helpful to just sit at a computer and look at it for multiple hours just to get used to that feeling again. So I did do both of those. I think I would try to do it like one a week. So I think I did 4 total. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about before I like talked about what I got on step two was kind of test taking day tips. I'm sure you guys have gotten this like drilled into you, but what really works for me, and I consider myself, at least back then, like I thought of myself as a pretty good test taker. Now, obviously, like I haven't taken a serious test in a while. But I would always eat a really good dinner the night before, like chicken piccata from Cheesecake Factory was what I ate before. I just remember that is what I ate before step two. And then you wake up the morning, like you try to get a good night of sleep. Don't study like a ton the night before. Try not to stay up late. Although I do remember I was so nervous for step two, I did not sleep like anything the night before, which was very stressful. But try to sleep the night before, wake up, like get your caffeine in, eat a good breakfast, but not something that's gonna make you crash. So something that has like protein and complex carbs. And then go to the test taking site, get there early, don't stress. Bring tons of snacks, any snack that you could possibly think of. Like I would always bring cut fruit. I would bring these like oatmeal cookies for a little bit of sweet, but like more complex, not just like a sugar rush and then crash. I'd bring crackers, cheese slices, I'd bring like a ton of Diet Coke, water, just bring more snacks. And like, it's not a bad thing to have too many snacks. I take every break, like every 2 sections, I would take a break. That's kind of why I would do 2 YearWorld sections, because that would be like my section of time. So every 2 sections, I would take a break. I would eat a snack, go to the bathroom, and then I would do some form of physical activity. I would like do squats or push-ups or like high knees or something, just to get my blood flowing, get everything moving again, keep my brain sharp. And I would take the full break time, because that's why it's there. You know, it's so hard to take 8 hours of a test. It's so hard. So you really just need to take your break time. Don't try to rush the day, and just try to do your best. I also think the mindset of how you approach test taking is really important. I would approach it as like a fun challenge to show what I've learned. I would try not to be nervous. I would try not to be dreading it. I would try to be looking forward to it so I could prove what I've learned. And I think that really helped me. So all this said and done, I ended up getting a 258 on step 2, which I was really proud of. It obviously was good enough that I matched into the residency and specialty that I wanted. So yeah, that's what I did. If there are any questions, please let me know. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time. Bye.